Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ambassador Greer, for appearing today. Under President Trump's leadership, we've seen a bold reassertion of American economic strength and leverage on the global stage. I'd like to walk through some of these wins and clarify the intent behind the administration's trade actions. Ambassador Greer, can you start by reminding this committee why President Trump felt it necessary to take such divisive action with tariffs and what problems he inherited from decades of failed globalist trade policy?
Yes, certainly. As I've mentioned before, President Biden left us with the largest trade deficit for any country in human history, $1.2 trillion. It's extreme, it's unsustainable, especially when we have a $36 trillion debt and a $2 to $3 trillion budget deficit. None of these numbers are sustainable, and anyone who wants to pass this on to the next generation or to our kids or to the next session, they're doing a disservice. We have to deal with it now, and we need to deal with the reshoring and remanufacturing now before we're in another crisis, whether it's a conflict or a pandemic. That is not the time to try to get back pharmaceuticals and semiconductors and autos and all these kinds of things. We have to do it now.
What distinguishes the Trump approach from the past 30 years of so-called free trade policies that gutted our manufacturing base?
Well, Wall Street, we've heard a lot about Wall Street today and how important Wall Street is and all their analysts. And their entire goal has been just to make money for that top share of the elite, right? That's been their goal. And so they've been focused on offshoring so they can have more efficiencies, so they can have cheaper labor, no environmental regulations. They can go to these low-cost jurisdictions. And what does that mean? It means that we have workers who train their replacements in foreign countries. They lose their jobs, and then they're in their hometown without a factory, without a job, and they live lives of despair in many cases. And that's what's different with President Trump. He wants to reverse that, and he wants to change it.
And isn't it true that over 60 countries have already come to the table to negotiate since the president announced the new reciprocal tariff structure?
Well, I'm starting to lose count, but yes, that's the neighborhood of the folks who want to come in and work with us on reciprocal trade.
And what does that say about the global leverage we've regained under this administration?
Well, that's exactly right. We are the market destination for both consumption, investment, et cetera. And other countries want access to our market. They understand now that we have to have it on fair terms, and that's why they're here. They'd be running the other way. That's why almost all of them have said, we're not going to retaliate, we're going to work with the administration.
And how important is it from a national security standpoint that we reduce our dependency on foreign steel, aluminum, and automotive components, and how have the tariffs moved us in that direction?
That's a great point. With steel and aluminum, the president put tariffs on steel and aluminum in his first term. The Biden administration kept those in place. He's tightened up some of those tariffs now, and so we are able to maintain a steel industry. We're able to maintain an aluminum industry. These are things you have to have as inputs for weapon systems, for our infrastructure, and a country that doesn't have that kind of hard manufacturing power behind it isn't going to have the soft diplomatic power you need to navigate a challenging world.
And do you believe that President Trump's tariff policy has reestablished American economic sovereignty, where we no longer have to beg foreign governments to treat us fairly?
Yeah, I think there's no question about that. And we can see it from the first term when we imposed tariffs on China in an effort to get them to change their unfair trading practices. When that happened, we saw our trade deficit with China decrease, which is really important. So it shows that we can become less dependent on foreign powers for the most critical goods and services.
And how important has President Trump's leadership, his willingness to stand up to global elites and foreign governments, been in reasserting the United States as a trade power?
Well, it's been historic. It's been historic because in the past we've had leaders and politicians who were either in the pocket of Wall Street or they had some other special interest, and he's been willing to take a stand and do hard things and show others that he's not going to cave. This is really important because if other countries think about power in a different way. Some politicians want foreign countries to say nice things about them. That's like their end purpose in foreign policy or trade policy. President Trump wants the right thing for Americans, and sometimes it means you have to stand up for yourself, draw a line in the sand, and say, we're not going to do this anymore.
What would you say for the first time in decades, American workers have a president who fights for them, not for multinational corporations or foreign bureaucrats?
That's exactly right, Congressman. That's why workers voted for him. That's why unions support the tariff actions. That's why we see, op-eds in the newspaper about union presidents wanting to work with President Trump on trade. That's why we're seeing all of that change, that realignment.
And I'll end with this. What evidence have you seen that President Trump's tariffs are driving jobs back to the United States and helping to rebuild our manufacturing base?
Well, for example, the auto tariffs that were imposed, we've already seen that one company is increasing employment, including temporary employment in Indiana. We've seen in Tennessee, there was a shift that was going to go down to another country. They kept that shift in America. Everyone knows if you want certainty, if you want access, you build in America and you use American labor.
Thank you. My time's expired.